This call is being recorded.
Good morning. We're going to call the meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council meetings can take place in person as long as physical distancing of 2 meters can be maintained between participants. At this time, according to Alberta Health, public attendance at council meetings should be facilitated through virtual means. If you've submitted a comment request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from the public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name. We ask that only one member of the public speak at a time. All persons will be allotted 10 minutes to speak as per our procedural bylaw. We ask that if the meeting recesses, that any callers hang up and call back in as the meeting reconvenes. This helps with call quality. Please note this call is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website and or social media. To eliminate background noise, please mute your phone during the meeting. Everyone has a right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per the Municipal Government Act, Section 198. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding. We'll start with a roll call attendance. Reeve Link is present. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Present. Councillor
Wilson. Councillor Bigger.
Here.
Councillor Eichert.
Present.
Councillor Kester.
Present.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yep, I'm here.
Thanks, everybody. Additionally, due to the hybrid nature of our meeting, our voting procedure will be modified. I will call for any councillor who is opposed to a motion to indicate verbally. For any motions with expressed opposition, we will conduct a roll call vote. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
I'd like to add a CMRB participation discussion.
We'll add that under closed session under 421.
I have, excuse me, I have just a question for the transportation under 4.2.
Sounds good.
Add somebody in camera for Siksika and Redland County Relations.
We'll add that under closed session under 6.
Thank you.
Good morning, Redland. Brian from administration. I do have a piece of correspondence from the Life Saving Society. It's a proclamation of National Drowning Week.
You want us to throw it in the water?
We can add that under correspondence under 5.1. I had a phone call from Chair Dan Shute from the WID board last night, and he was wondering if council wanted to consider a board, like an inter-board council meeting. We have done them previously. We kind of let them pull off our radar a little bit over the last year, but if council is in favor, perhaps we could have our administrations coordinate a date for a meeting. It might be best. Dan had said they don't really have a space to host a larger group until their new office is open, so perhaps if we could host council, we could add it for discussion anyways. We could add it under perhaps 2.2 business arising, if that works. Any other additions or changes? If we aren't going to act, we could just wait, or we can add it. It's council's. Our previous discussion had said that we would address it once the PricewaterhouseCoopers report was made public, and I haven't looked like today or yesterday, but last week it wasn't available. Actually, last week Premier Kenney said they hadn't seen the final report, so I assume it's going to be a little bit of time until we're able to review that. So
Yeah,
I'd prefer to wait until we have that.
I'd prefer to wait as well. I'm just wondering if this is the last.
I know we'd said we would bring it back to the June 7th Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting, but that was with the assumption that we would see that report kind of after the April 30th deadline. So if council's comfortable, we could just update the Wheatland Regional Partnership that we're waiting until that information's available. Or I'm happy to discuss it today as well.
We don't have any more information. I don't see any reason why to bring it forward at this time.
That's why I didn't add it, just because we don't have the information we need. So, okay. Any other additions or changes? A motion to approve the agenda.
Also, I'll make the motion.
Councillor Eichert has moved to approve the agenda as amended. You're okay? With the amendments?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Move to 1.31, minutes from our May 18th council meeting.
I'll move to accept them as circulated.
Councillor Armstrong has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. 1.32, public hearing minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.11. Good morning.
Morning, Council. Stefan from Administration here. Presenting first reading for Bylaw 2021-09. So the purpose of the application is to redesignate a portion of the subject lands from Agricultural General District to Country Residential District. The lands are located just south of the village of Hisar. So the ultimate point of the application here, there's a subdivision associated with it as well. So there's an existing 2.15 acre country residential parcel. The intent is to expand that parcel to 5.51 acres in size. So the balance lands are designated agricultural general. So this requires a 3.36 acre redesignation from agricultural general to country residential. So that's indicated here on page 22. The area in red would be redesignated from Ag General to Country Residential to facilitate that future boundary adjustment. This becomes apparent when you look at the air photo. So the intent obviously is to expand that, that Lot 1 boundary to more closely align with the farmstead area. Lot 1, which is the 2.15 acre parcel, is developed with a dwelling, has associated servicing infrastructure. Lot 2 has some agricultural buildings, which are again proposed to be within Lot 1, but no dwelling. And both parcels access Highway 561 to the north, and the Lot 2, or the balance lands, also have an access point to Range Road 201 to the east. There are no concerns with respect to statutory policy or the strategic plan. It's not actually creating a new parcel. In fact, it's just enhancing the alignment with the existing agricultural land use. So as such, administration has no concerns and recommend that council move first reading to bylaw 2021-09 and schedule a public hearing for July 6th, 2021. Concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions if you have any.
Council's wishes.
I'll move first reading.
Councillor Armstrong has moved first reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move that the public hearing for bylaw 2021-09 be scheduled for July 6th, 2021 at 9 a.m. in council chambers. If council chambers remain closed due to COVID-19, the public hearing will be held by conference call in accordance with the MGA Act, Section 199.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.12.
Good morning, council members. Graham Allison here, presenting bylaw 2021-13 to redesignate 8.91 acres within Northwest 22, 26, 23 west of the 4th Meridian from Country Residential District to Agricultural General District for the purpose of facilitating a consolidation. Subject parcels, as seen on the location plan on page 31 of your agenda package, are located off of Range Road 233, directly north of Rockyford. Staff has circulated the application to external agencies and to internal departments and will circulate adjacent landowners within a 1 mile radius of the subject lands. No objections have been received for this application. Tentative plan, located on page 32 of your agenda package, shows the subject site described as Northwest 22, 26, 23 west of the 4th. With proposed redesignation for 3 plus or minus 2.97 acre lots, totaling 8.91 acres, which will be redesignated from Country Residential to Agricultural General District to facilitate the consolidation of 3 lots into the adjacent 69.46 acre agricultural general parcel. Parcels were originally redesignated and subdivided in 2009, and as a condition of that subdivision, the applicant entered into a development agreement with the county to construct an internal subdivision road, which would provide access to the subject parcels. As of today, the road has not been constructed, and the applicant is proposing to redesignate the subject parcels back to Agricultural General and to consolidate them back into the 69.46 acre parcel and undertake the process for a road closure for the right-of-way that is registered on the parcel. There is no servicing or structures on any of the subject parcels. Proposal generally aligns with the strategies, objectives, and policies within the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, Regional Growth Management Strategy, Municipal Development Plan, and will bring the parcels into alignment with land use bylaw. Administration recommending the council grant first reading for bylaw 2021-13 and schedule a public hearing for July 6, 2021. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Council's wishes.
I'll move first reading for bylaw 2021-13.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move. Go ahead, Don.
I'll move the public hearing for bylaw 2021-13 to be scheduled for July 6, 2021.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.13.
Good morning, Reeve Lincoln Council. Tracy from Administration. At the April 6th meeting, Council received a letter from the WRC requesting a loan from the county to cover cost overruns for the South Truck Fill Station project. Council provided first reading. The bylaw was advertised in the Strathmore Times for 2 consecutive weeks, and Administration did not receive any comments from the public. We are therefore recommending second and third reading of the bylaw. Any questions?
Any questions from council? Council's wishes.
I'll move first reading.
Second reading.
Second reading, sorry.
Councillor Wilson has moved second reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move third reading.
Councillor Eichert has moved third reading. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ready for the next item?
You bet. We'll move to 2.14.
Great. Bryce from Administration, presenting bylaw 2021-16, road closure first reading. A road closure was done in 1989 by the provincial government of undeveloped road allowance that missed a small triangular area which remains intact. A review of the plans and discussions with land titles indicates the intent was a full closure of the road plan. However, this small area was missed. Land titles officials have indicated that in order to proceed with the consolidation of lands contemplated under the sale of county-owned lands adjacent to this parcel, this small triangle of undeveloped road allowance must first be cancelled. No other road closures are required, and this is only a housekeeping closure of the small area missed in 1989. Staff will be bringing forward bylaw 2021-16 for this purpose, with the county as the applicant. The closure of land exchange will not leave any titled parcels landlocked, and the area of the proposed closure is 0.006 hectare or 0.015 acres, more or less.
That's big.
The county is the applicant on this closure, and no fees apply, and there are no survey costs as well. After first reading, the land agent will prepare the required circulations and notices, and followed by second and third reading of the bylaw. I am available for any questions.
Any questions from council? Council's wishes.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moving first reading.
Yes.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll move the public hearing.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved to schedule the public hearing. Any discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move to 2.2, the addition of WID. So historically we have met, I believe, on a sort of annual basis with the WID board. Chair Danshute asked if council might consider scheduling a meeting in the next little while. And so I indicated I would bring it to council.
While I'd love to meet with him, why wouldn't you just schedule it for November?
The new councils, or new council. We could do that. There could be some, I know in the past there have been some ways that we've collaborated. I know that they have some pretty significant projects being planned with infrastructure and that type of thing. So if Dan's asking, there's likely things that are pertinent now, and then perhaps we could schedule a follow-up once the new council is in place.
They'll just want to slough work off.
Yeah, exactly.
You need a motion?
We would, yeah. Perhaps just maybe directing administration to coordinate or invite WID for a joint meeting and coordinate a date, something like that.
I'll move that.
Within person?
He thought that they would be. He would check with his board. He did indicate that they don't necessarily have space to host like a number of people until their new building is open. But I said we have ample space here, whether we use the EOC or...
We have a tailgate meeting in the new parking lot.
You could.
You want OB? Can you make a motion on it?
I think I did.
Okay. Councillor Bigger has moved. Any discussion?
Thought I did.
Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Move to 3.1. My report is included in the package. CMRB was heavy in May. Deputy Reeve Clausen and I attended a number of meetings. Ultimately, May 21st, the growth plan, servicing plan, and the regional evaluation framework were approved. There were no substantive changes to what we saw in our council presentation the week prior.
That's a good thing.
I think it's important to note that 3 counties opposed sending to the
Yes.
as it was presented, but it still went forward.
Yes. Excellent point. So there was majority support for the plans, but the 3 rural municipalities did vote in opposition due to numerous concerns.
Question, how did Strathmore vote?
They were in favor.
They were in favor.
All 7 urban municipalities were in favor. The 3 rural municipalities were
Did that
opposed.
pass the other day?
No, they didn't have the discussion.
From a good news standpoint, the CMRB did approve sending a letter to the Waste Policy section of Alberta Environment and Parks regarding the draft code of practice for composting, and I believe they were working fairly closely. I don't know, Scott, if you were involved. I know administration was involved in kind of input into that letter and some of the concerns. So thank you to our staff and to the CMRB for sending that letter. And as well, it was an honor to represent the county at the opening of the rural health clinic that is offering vaccines for rural residents in Siksika. So I actually saw a number of Wheatland County ratepayers there just on my way out. So I think it will be a good service. I know lots of people who've had to drive to downtown Calgary or that type of thing. So it is nice for people to have a rural option, and definitely want to express gratitude for Siksika Nation for opening that up to rural ratepayers. They opened it up to rural residents in our county as well as Newell and Vulcan. And with that, I will move that my report be accepted as presented. Any questions or discussion? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I don't think we need a motion, but I did just include, so the addendum to my report is we're given a number of goals by Western Economic Diversification for Community Futures Wild Rose, and the orange on the left-hand side of the bar graph is the targets, and then the blue, excuse me, on the right-hand side represents how we've exceeded the goals that WD sets for Community Futures. So as you can see, Community Futures Wild Rose has just had incredible performance, and along with that, I think that the graph doesn't necessarily show is just the impact that that has on the community and to businesses that they're supporting. So I did just want to present that for council information. We'll move to 3.2, Deputy Reeves' report.
Thank you. My report's on page 51 of the council package. We've talked about Siksika council meetings. The only one WRC meeting that we had on the 18th, Hazar basically finally said that they do not want to be part of the future of WRC. So that includes their shares and whatnot, and it'd be an interesting discussion on how it comes to be and how we operate after that. There was a little bit brief discussion on how many chairs and how many seats we would have after, but we have to see how that's going to work out. We also did the RFP for
Organizational audit.
Organizational audit. So that should be coming back to us hopefully this month. May 19th, HOA meeting for Lakes and Muirfield. They've had really good support for that amalgamation. So now they're basically hired a lawyer and are working with county staff to figure out how to make it happen. I did the online for the Alberta Environment and Parks Code of Practice update on compost facilities. They took a lot of the work that we had done and put it into that document. I was really happy with that. A few little things that I'd like to see better, but overall I was surprised at how much they took information from us as well. So, awesome. Yeah. If there's no questions, I'll move my report as presented.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.3.
I have only one committee meeting to report from. I was unable to attend the Strathmore Handy Bus due to I had a traction meeting, a business traction meeting, which went well. We discussed the future of the board really and the purpose of it. So whether Jamie needs it or not, and what we can do to help Jamie out. So other than that, I went to the same council meetings and MPC as you guys. So I'll move my report as read.
Any questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.4.
Yes, the chamber is going in for an application for a grant for $15,000 for Shop Local campaign, and just going through that. They have 3 new directors for the chamber, and what else here? Economic Board, Jason already mentioned, figuring out if the committees are actually, we're going to be taking it to the Economic Board as a whole, whether to continue with the committees. They seem to be kind of redundant now that Jamie's kind of here and things are going forward through him. Canadian Badlands, we are in talks with Goldstein, or Travel Alberta, on trying to come up with a solution for Canadian Badlands. So that's still ongoing. Hopefully we can have something decided here really soon. Yeah, that's about it. I'll move my report as presented.
Any questions for Councillor Bicker? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.5.
My report is before you on the server. I think everything has been covered, so I will move my report as presented. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Eichert? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.6.
My report is there, if there's any questions. If not, I'll move my report as presented.
Any questions for Councillor Kester? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.7.
Thank you. Good morning. My report's on the website, on the screen in front of you. I do have one change though, Margaret, in that May 17th road tour. Every spring I do a run around out there, and in the fall I do another one to look at what the roads are like. And in there, when I had Terry type it up, she missed a sentence. So where it says renewed maintenance contract with Drumheller Contractor to rebuild section of road 6 miles west of Dallam, that's supposed to read renewed maintenance contract with Drumheller for the maintenance of Raymond Hill and the South Wayne Hill, and then period, and then that contractor to rebuild section of road 6 miles west of Dallam. It sounds like we did a contract with Drumheller to fix that road, and we didn't. But like it says there, the roads are in pretty good shape out there. There's some questions on some of the secondary I have with the staff, though, from some maintenance that goes on out there, and I'll discuss that with them when we come to their reports. But other than that, if there's no questions, I'll move my report.
Any questions for Councillor Armstrong? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.1.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. On page 56 of the agenda package is my monthly report. Kind of just business as usual. Attended the WRC meeting on May 18th. The county is currently working on our core safety audit, so that has been completed. The interview section anyway, so I believe the internal auditors are just doing their paperwork, and they're going to send it to the province. It should take around, I think it's 4 weeks to get back to the score from the province if there's any inquiries they have to complete. so that's going along pretty well. Gravel sales occurred on May 11th and May 12th. There were 2 ratepayers that took advantage of that. The gravel crew, a crew also fenced off the Lyalta stock pit. There's a little bit of stuff going on from that pit, so we're just securing that. Calcium has been applied during the month of March. We expect that to be completed around mid-June. And the biggest capital project underway, excluding the Carsline Fire Hall, is the wastewater on 8th Ave in Gleason. So that has just started this last week. If there's any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions for CAO Henderson?
Yeah, just a question on the calcium. Are we still doing it the same way we've done it, or are we doing it more in the practices of the other counties like Rocky View and that kind of stuff? Because before we used to do an awful lot of prep work before we put the calcium down, and the other counties, when I looked into it, didn't seem to be doing that much prep work, and hence their calcium prices were considerably less money than ours is. So are we still doing it the old? Go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Eichert. To the chair, so we are still kind of doing it the old way. One improvement that we did do is that we source our calcium from a different supplier. So that did save approximately 25% on the cost of the actual application of the actual product, but the application still has kind of remained the same. Just unfortunately, it's something that we kind of just missed internally, but we'll make sure to we had that on our list. I actually have it on our list since December. And we'll make sure to kind of rectify that one coming up in the application in 2022. Thank you.
And one more question. I'm just on the bottom of page, I think it's 57, the Muirfield lot sale summary. Is that, can you explain that bottom number of, how many dollars worth of lots have we sold out of Muirfield?
So I believe it would be around 1.8 million. So if you take that 1.2 plus the 640,000, so add those 2 numbers up, I think it's actually around 1.9 million. Sorry. There are some lots still listed, and there's an RFP coming forward about some reserve pricing today on 2 more lots that we had missed, and those lots are actually coming forward. There is I believe, a potential purchaser for those 2 lots. So should be around just under $2 million.
Okay, so just the 4.8 that I'm seeing there, that's the amount of lots the county owns that could theoretically be sold. Is that the number? I just want to get this clarified in my head.
I believe so. Bryce, if you're sitting in council chambers, do you want to provide a little bit more clarity on that?
So it's just Matt at the microphone, but that is correct, Councillor Eichert.
Thank you.
I had a question on that too. So when do they have a certain building time span where they have to build on these sales?
Yes, so there's just to walk council through the process through the REEV. As you might know, Councillor Bigger, there's the architectural guidelines. So the process actually is when a builder is looking at purchasing the lot, they consult with those guidelines. Then they go through the architectural guidelines with IBI Group, who basically goes and checks the renderings, makes sure it fits with the ARC controls within the community. And then when they come to apply at the county, we make sure that there's a stamp so that it all fits the character of the neighborhood first. So it's kind of an additional process before it gets to the county. But then they apply, we give them their permit. If there is an amendment, as council's aware, to the direct control bylaw, we have to bring it here because there's a DC district that covers Muirfield. So the timelines can be a little wobbly, but we do in fact expedite these permits as quickly as possible because it is rather straightforward with the architectural controls, keeping into consideration that we go through that process first.
So people can't buy them on spec pretty much, right? Like as an investment, people are actually building
builders
on them.
Yeah.
There is people that do that, but there is, I heard from one person, the HOA fees kick in right away, like after a certain amount of time. So there's some incentive for people not to sit on them.
Okay.
And some people were expressed concerns about that, and personally I don't have a problem with it because it gives that incentive to build. I'd rather see people build than...
Yeah, same here.
But from what I understand, there is no way that we can set a timeline for construction. That's what I've always been told.
Yes.
Maybe that's changed.
Yes, and that's correct, Councillor Clausen, Deputy Reeve Clausen, sorry. So realistically for us as the county, one benefit that we have that occurs when the lot is actually sold and the purchaser takes ownership of it is that it becomes a taxable or assessable lot that we can actually collect tax revenue from, even if it is vacant land. It may be, I think the lot value ranges from 40 to 80 of assessed value, but when it sits with us as the county being the land owner, we don't get any assessment from it. And obviously as people build and get onto the system, the assessment value increases. So it's a good tax revenue for us, even if the lot is just purchased and held. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Armstrong, you had a question regarding transportation. We could address that now.
First one is a question. Do we need topsoil? I got a landowner phone me the other day. He's building a huge shop and he's got a whole pile of land topsoil he wants to get rid of. Do we need any?
Through the chair, I do not believe so. I can check with operations, but I think we have an abundance of topsoil, especially up around Division 6 with that Rosebud Lagoon as well.
I'll just, sorry, Brian, I'll just add, it's Bryce from administration through the chair. We do have some capital projects or some road projects that we may be able to utilize some topsoil. We do have some, as Brian, as the CAO mentioned, in Rosebud, but a lot of that topsoil is accounted for. So we're open to looking for some.
I'll give you the guy's name and phone number, and you can contact him, and if there's anything there, then fine. It's right over just a little bit west of my place, half a mile west of my place. So
perfect. I'll pass that along to the Public Works Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing, I got a call from email, text from a landowner up in that Duck Lake, Dorothy on top of the hill. I sent a picture to, I don't know if you guys, I just sent it to you guys. Transportation has been in there. That's a secondary road, and there's an issue with some flooding up on the hill. So instead of, I don't know, transportation went in there with a high hole and they dug a trench in the ditch for half a mile to alleviate the problem. And the landowner is concerned that it's a danger,
Looks like it.
an issue if somebody ever goes off there with a vehicle. Right on top of the Dorothy Hill on 844, is it?
Definitely not sloped very well.
848. Hey? Well, yeah. I
forwarded it to Brian. Brian can probably get it to Bryce.
Yeah, through the chair, if you can forward me the information, we'll pass it along to, again, Cody, the Public Works Manager. He'll have the information needed for that.
Brian's got it, so you can get it from him.
Perfect. Unless you want to comment now, Cody, are you on the line? No, we'll pass it along and get some information back.
Enough.
Any other questions regarding the CAO report or transportation and agriculture? A motion to accept the CAO report as information.
Also move.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any councillors opposed? Motion is carried. The second motion for the resolution tracker, please. I will move that we accept the council resolution tracker as information. Is anyone opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.21, Wheatland County Solar Panel Project Report.
Turn that on. Bryce from administration. In September of 2016, the county proceeded to award Skyfire Energy Inc. a contract to install a 60 kilowatt solar PV system on the east wing of the administration building for $118,790. This project was approved for funding through the Alberta Municipal Solar Program for up to 20% of eligible expenses. This system has provided, to date, a total of 249.58 megawatt hours since installation on October 31st, 2016. As for the attached chart, which is not on my paper, scrolling down. There we go. You can see a summary installation minus the funding that we received for it, for a grand total installation of $95,032. As of, I believe, last week, total energy savings was 249 megawatt hours, sorry. And at our current electricity rate of $50.95 per megawatt hour, that's a savings of $12,716. Dividing that up, you get an average savings per year minus the annual maintenance. That's an estimate year after year. We end up with a payback period of 40.86 years. I will highlight that a report was brought to council in 2017. That report was done, I believe, by a school or a university that considered a lot of different options and made a lot of assumptions about costs and price and payback and carbon savings and those kind of things. This chart is strictly just what the utility rate is now and what our energy savings have been straight across the board. That is my report. We recommend it for information. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much for this, because although I had assumed that this would be what the numbers would look like, having been looking at the numbers. So solar panels last 20 years, so another 15 years from now. We haven't got removal of solar panels in this deal. I'm just being facetious, just telling you that. No, I just... yeah, they're going to be buried in the land. But no, so anyway, this is, and I don't care, anytime anybody comes, anytime government money is involved in this kind of stuff, the answer has to be no. I mean, I don't care how green it is and how good you feel. We've wasted taxpayers' money by having this done. And we have a fiduciary responsibility for every tax dollar we get. So this should be on the front page of the Wheatland, our website, of why government should not be doing stupid things. I mean,
was this a recorded vote when you guys put it on, Ben? Was it a recorded vote when you guys put this on?
But anyways, I thank you very much for the work done, and all that green stuff out there. If you cannot put it to paper, it's not worth a dime. Like, I don't care how much carbon we're supposedly saving and all that. If you can't put it onto paper, it's not saving any money. But I thank you for the work, and I cry a little bit because it's wasted money, but we've wasted more money than that at doing other stuff. So that's my piece.
Hey, just a comment on bringing this information forward. You're not going to do anything with it, correct?
I don't. So, what can you do with it?
Okay. We kind of all had the idea of that. That's what it would look like, to be quite honest. I voted against this motion because I knew there's nothing we could do about it.
But we now know what the numbers are.
Yeah, but if
before that, it was just
the numbers. It's just a waste of staff time.
Well, we do that constantly, and at least now. I mean, we've got staff chasing their tails on. We try not to do it, but staff chases their tails. That's just the nature of the business. And the fact that we now know it's quantifiable, and if somebody comes, see, the town of Strathmore might have come to us with these numbers here before they did what they're going to do. We could have saved them some money. We were just too late in getting this report out, because I'm pretty sure they would have taken this to heart.
Well, if there's no action, I just think it's a waste of time. motion condemning moves like this even is better than nothing. I mean, something that makes this worthwhile.
Where there could be value in it is informing future decisions. So if there was a future capital project that we were contemplating adding solar panels to, I can't think of one offhand because we're not really doing anything with a roof or that type of thing right now, but it could help inform if we can retrospectively look at what the return was on this, compare that to what a return would be on our typical investments, and just see. I mean, when you factor in inflation and what we would have gotten for what we typically get for returns on our investment portfolio, like, this doesn't make sense. But we also have to put ourselves in the shoes of the council of the day. We're not looking at the information that they were provided when they made that decision. So there's no judgment for me in the decision that was made historically, because I'm not looking at the information that was presented to that council that of the day when this decision was made. So, and solar panels are somewhat of a dynamic situation because I think efficiency, from what I've read, has improved over time. Lifespan, there's some uncertainty around lifespan. These ones, I don't know what the lifespan for these specific panels could be. I think now it's more 25 to 30 years is sort of the average of what I've heard, but there's also the uncertainties at end of life, like you mentioned, around, will there be expenses incurred at end of life and things like that. So,
through the chair, I understand where you're coming, and I agree with what you said. And I know a few landowners out there that have gone to solar system, put them all over their farm, on their roofs, on everything else, and they swear by it. They're saving all kinds of money. I looked into it a few years ago, and I couldn't figure out how to make it worth the problem of going to the expense to do that and get a payback that made sense. So I didn't do it. Yet when you talk to these guys, they can make it. They'll try and convince you that it makes sense. If it makes sense to them, fine. It makes sense to them. But
say communism makes sense, and I can't fathom that either. So
that's right.
People out there that.
But like Amber said, it depends on the information you're given at the time when you make these decisions. It's like in past practice is present problem. It always has been. It always will be. The information you get today and you make a decision on 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years down the road, you take a look at that and say, how in the hell did they ever make that decision? That's how the system works. So it's not an issue with me. They're there. We're using them. Whatever. It's nice information for the next go round when they come back in and say we're building a new building and we want to put panels on it. Then we can take a harder look at it. So.
Yeah, for me, it's very interesting information to follow up with this. When you talk about new construction builds, maybe it'd be better off to spend, just hypothetically spend that money on insulation or something, or more efficient HVAC systems and that kind of stuff, because that's where your true cost. You can save that electrical before you even use it, or that gas before you even use it, by the building envelope. But for me, I mean, this project, it's great to see. That's great, the value to see how it's working out. If it came to us 2 years down the road and said we needed a major repair, we had to spend some money, would I support it? Probably not. But if it's paid for and it's running, it's a good example of, will it meet its lifespan? Will it actually do it? And you learn from stuff. I have direct relatives that spent $50,000 on a solar panel system at their house, and it sits there and collects dust right now because it wasn't worth anything. And I had direct involvement in trying to keep it running. It was a great idea, but the maintenance on it was unbelievable. So this stuff is good. If the technology gets better, that's where the key will work, but right now it's just not there. Thanks for the information.
Any other questions or discussion on the report? A motion to accept for information.
Also moved.
Councillor Eichert has moved. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. And I'll just reiterate Deputy Reeve Clausen's thanks. We do appreciate the information. We'll move to 4.22, Redland Water Servicing.
Hey, Bryce from Administration again. This is a report for Redland Water Servicing based on a discussion at a previous council meeting. Administration will be bringing forward some information, and I'll just go through the report here. In December of 2020, the Wheatland Regional Corporation, WRC, completed Phase 3 of the regional system. This phase saw their existing transmission line extended through Redland to service Rosebud. During the Phase 3 project, a high-level estimate was done assuming rural-type connections for the residents in Redland, with some residents connected directly to the transmission line and others connected to a small distribution line. The estimate came to approximately $300,000. In looking at options for connecting Redland residents to this transmission line, administration is bringing forward two potential options. Option one would be rural connections. This option would have the WRC work with residents as rural customers. The WRC is already set up to do this. They have design, process, and the ability to make these connections. They have connections throughout the county right now. This option would require the WRC or the property owners, depending on the plan, to apply to use our right-of-ways for the service lines. As part of this process, the county would review the plan to confirm locations of the lines in our right-of-ways and have all required agreements signed off. The WRC would own, operate, maintain this system, and all liabilities would fall to them. All utility billings, rates, procedures would be the responsibility of the WRC. Just want to make a note here. We have not talked to the WRC regarding this specific option. We're just aware that they do rural connections, and this is the information we're going to provide. Another option would be for the county to install a distribution system of our own. This option would have the county design and install a distribution system that connected to the WRC transmission line. The system would be owned, maintained, and operated by the county, and all liabilities would then fall to the county. We would have that designed or signed off by our engineering consultant to ensure that we meet all provincial requirements, codes, and confirm any potential impacts to the transmission line or downstream users. The county has installed or upgraded infrastructure systems in other hamlets and has many options to address the installation costs. Option 2 would allow the county to determine how installation costs were addressed, how utility rates would be determined, and the billing procedures would be consistent with our other communities. The current potable water agreement with the WRC would require updating to add Redland, similar to how Rosebud and Gleason are in the potable water agreement, and determine the transfer point. Based on testing results further upstream in Rosebud, we have no concerns with the liability regarding water quality from the transmission line in Redland. If the county were to oversee the system, a monitoring and testing procedure would be created to ensure safe water was consistently being delivered. Each option is acceptable under the 2017-19 Wheatland Sewer and Waterworks bylaw. That is my presentation. I believe I've added some, no, that is my presentation. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions from council?
I got a couple of comments.
Sure, please go ahead, Councillor Kester.
I think one of your last statements there, Bryce, you mentioned Rosebud's upstream. I think Rosebud's downstream, and Rocky Ford, no, not even Rocky Ford, would have to be standard, would be upstream. I think the water flows from Redland to Rosebud.
Yes,
anyway,
sure, my apologies, that's correct.
Yeah. In talking to the residents there, and to Jason Nibb, he's getting some pricing done for them. I don't know what the pricings are, if he's got it done yet. He's got it measured up. There could be a potential of 5 in Redland would hook up. I'm thinking 3 for sure, and 2 would hook up if there was maybe if the county could debentures and help them out with the upfront costs, and then they would pay back a debenture or a loan over time, no different than other hamlets where we have debentures. But they're still in, talks, planning with Jason. And I don't know how much the county wants to get involved. But there's, like I say, there could be 5 in Redland. And it looks like they could put in one line, 2-inch maybe, and take separate water connections off of that 2-inch. And I don't know what the total length of the 2-inch would be less than a kilometer for sure. I'm pretty sure. Kilometers aren't that big either. I'm a country boy that deals in miles. Potential for the future on that 2-inch. There's one property that is for sale there that potential to have water, but the 2-inch would easily handle that too. But I would just wait and see what pans out with that study and if they come to the county. But that's kind of all I know, unless there's any questions.
No questions, just WRC, we talked about this, and I kind of look at it, we had the fortunate, the path that went through Redland was actually the cheapest way for the water line to go to Rosebud, so that provided an opportunity to service the area. When it comes, the residents approached the county, Glen, and through WRC, and they want the water, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. The WRC needs the customers. I kind of look at this and thinking about it back and forth, and I guess to council, what I would say is, does the county want to invest in infrastructure similar to other hamlets where you'd have, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right and have a big reservoir and fire hydrants and distribution, like it's a whole system that then we have to operate. And there's nothing saying that we can't just let WRC service this area. I don't know if there was history here with Redlands being a growth node. Was there projections that it's going to grow? And, if it was going to have constant growth in the next 20 years, that might be something we'd look at, in my opinion, about putting infrastructure in the ground and supporting that. But for right now, I think I think our best option is let WRC deal with it. And then that gets the residents what they need, which is water if they so choose, and just WRC has a mechanism to treat them as rural customers, and it just goes forward. It would be no different than a gas co-op coming in and providing from propane tanks to an infrastructure of pipe gas. It's there. Does the county really need to get involved? That's how I kind of look at it. Maybe my analogy is a little bit off, but that's the closest thing I can think of. It's the residents right now do have water by their own means. It's not a rush situation by any means. They want to take advantage of the new system, so there's mechanisms for that. Unless you can think of something else.
I'm just like I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that if the county gets involved in this, I think the costs are going to be higher. And since and this council has taken it upon itself that anything we're going to do is in the light of cost recovery. So I think we just take this on sort of as information and allow NIBS to come up with a price and see what it is for the people that want to get involved in it, and allow this to keep this in WRC. I think this is more of a rural situation than it is for a quote-unquote hamlet situation. So that's my opinion.
But would we need a motion to treat it as a rural connection? Would that give WRC better direction? Because right now, they're waiting for us to make a decision, basically.
I would wait on that. I would just accept this as information for now and wait and see what the residents come up with and hear their side. I wouldn't go to, well, we're just definitely going to do WRC, just accept it as information and see what pans out. When we get more information, we get all the information that's relevant, then we can have a better idea, and then we can decide what you want to do. Like, there's two there, and they haven't talked to me personally and asked for a debenture. It was just our group thinking that maybe if we had a debenture type thing, it would help them out. And debentures are cost recovery. They're just another word for a loan. So I would just say, accept this as information. And in fact, I'll move it as information, accept as information, and we'll wait for the residents or ratepayers. And if they want to approach the county, then they'd be free to do that.
What's the cost of water for rural users? Because it's different than urban, isn't it?
I think it's somewhere around $4.25 a meter.
When you put any sort of debenture on, you're probably looking at closer to $7 total.
I'm not sure. I would assume that you'd put a debenture on the...
So even 6, give it conservative. I mean, it's made very clear in the report we have that any sort of debenture isn't really wanted. 7 out of 8 people were against that idea, so...
I think we have to wait until we get the information back from WRC and NIBS and what that number looks like, and then, like I said, if they can handle it, I think we allow them to handle it. It saves us a whole bunch of grief, I think.
So WRC's current policy on how to hook up a rural user is there's a fee for a vault and a meter, and then
how much is that fee?
I don't have it off the top of my head. And then anything from that vault to the homeowner's house, if it's a mile away or whatever on their land, that's their responsibility to decide how they want it done. They recommend a contractor, which would be NIBS right now. That's who goes out and measures it. They can choose to have Grays or whoever they want to do it, or do it themselves for that matter. But that's their infrastructure from that point on. So then the meter and everything's there. There might be a different variant with this because there's multiple users closer by. That's something that we discussed at WRC, but it'll have to be delved into more. So, but there's a process for this rural user, so it's pretty straightforward.
There's a motion on the floor to accept the report as information. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.23, Rosebud Gravity Sewer System Cost Projection.
Again, it's Bryce from administration, bringing forward the report on gravity sewer system cost projection in Rosebud. This is further up additional information to a previous report presented to council at the last council meeting. The additional information we have is we have determined that the Rosebud low pressure sanitary system was installed in 1988-89 timeframe, according to our records. The system utilizes septic tanks on residents' properties that tie into a high-density polyethylene piping system that currently transfers wastewater to the Rosebud septic field. The septic tanks allow solids and heavy materials to settle, and a mostly liquid byproduct is then pumped into the distribution system. The pump in each septic tank provides the pressure required to move the material through the system. We also talked to the Hamlet crew to identify, and the Public Works Manager to identify ongoing maintenance or concerns in the Rosebud area with this system. They brought forward the following items as to highlight. At least once per year there's a clog in the system. That's pretty standard for a gravity system as well. We get clogs and such, so not the difference is the effort required to unclog that point in the system. Connection points in the system when it was installed are plastic fittings, so the county has been consistently replacing those fittings through the years. We try to do a few of them every year and continue to do so. We do have some issues with freezing annually through a pressurized system. If you don't get enough flow, you are suspect of freezing. And many of the septic tanks are in poor condition. Those vary. Those septic tanks belong to the property owners, so they replace them on their schedule, not on ours. We do empty them on an biannual basis every other year. But however, if they do need to be replaced or they do need to be repaired, that's up to the property owner. All the tanks throughout Rosebud, some are in need of replacement, some are fairly new. Really no rhyme or reason, it's just up to the property owner. And then we also highlighted that many of the service lines are smaller than described in our engineering drawings and plans. So we've identified that through the years as we've gone in for regular maintenance and repairs, and just wanted to make a note of it. Not all the lines are the size that we expected. As far as life expectancy of the system, it's very difficult to predict. I mean, HDPE piping system like that under pressure and flow should survive 50, 70 years without, if you don't have freezing, if you don't have issues like that. However, with as we mentioned, the plastic connections and the septic tanks are all variable. I have updated the attached chart. I'll scroll down. Has been updated from the previous report and shows estimated costs to install a gravity system in Rosebud with the addition of residential connections. This new cost assumes that the existing septic tanks are fed from a gravity line from each property. So a gravity line from the house to the septic tank, and we would connect directly to that gravity line. A large assumption, but we had to make something for the chart to work. If the county were to proceed with a project like this, the chart would be updated upon engineering design when we determine details like elevations, layout, and phasing from one system to another. If a gravity system were approved, administration would create a multi-year capital project that began with engineering to consider implementation of switching the systems. Options of phasing it into the community would need to be investigated, as removing septic tanks removes the pumps that pressurize the existing system. So to put that plainly, you take the pumps away and put gravity there. Well, now all those pumps are not pumping further throughout the system and supporting the rest of the system. So some engineering, some investigation would need to be done. The current Rosebud River Ridge development drawings include a system of septic tanks and an HDPE pipe that will connect to our existing system on Glide Street, approximately 250 meters from the development to the connection point. This system will match our existing system and will make sure, and that'll keep all operations and repairs consistent. Administration is open to consider and review any engineered plan a developer brings forward to service an area, but any plan to tie into the existing Rosebud system or any similar low pressure system would require septic tanks or lift stations to provide the necessary pumping to pressurize the system. On chart 2, again, updated this from the previous submission, shows an estimate to run a gravity system from the edge of River Ridge all the way down to the new lift station that's being built that will feed the lagoon, the new lagoon. This would include connecting approximately 20 utility users along that route. If this option was considered, then again, we would have an engineering review done to determine what that impact would be to remove those 20 septic tanks and pumps from the system. I will make a note in discussions with our operations and Hamlet crew and public works staff. We do prefer operating and working on gravity systems throughout communities. That is a preference for us. We think they have lower maintenance costs annually. However, low pressure lines do have their place. And for example, in Rosebud, the lift station up to the lagoon will be a force main, a pressurized lift station and system. So we're not opposed to a lift station. We do prefer working with and believe it's more efficient and cost effective to use gravity systems. That is my report. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for administration?
I'm just curious, when did Rosebud become part of the county? If this was done in 89. So then we put this system in 89? The county put this.
It was, I think, if I remember right, I'm just guessing.
Put your mic on.
From some of the comments I've heard, it wasn't put in as a permanent system. It was put in to get them through, to get them going, and they were supposed to be, my understanding was they were going to revisit it 10 years or whatever down the road. It wasn't, and it wasn't, from what I've heard from one of the guys that put it in years back, it was never maintained properly at the start. But it still works. But I don't think it was made for the amount of people who are starting to use it. That's the biggest problem. It was a low level.
Looks like they dissolved from village status in 1946.
My concern has always been, as far as the hamlets go in Wheatland County, that's one of our better hamlets. It's very, very, you know, I always call them artsy type, but it's a very progressive community down there, really progressive. And I've always thought that we should spend more time down there doing more to get it up to what its potential is, rather than kind of keep fixing it as we go. Eventually, someday, we're going to have to do something with it to make it. Because people are starting to go there. They've started using it more. They like the area. They like the. It's just a nice little place, and they've worked hard to make it what it is. So, yeah. Personally, I think it's not a waste of money to go in there and put the money into it that's needed. But.
For myself, I'm not opposed to upgrading the system, but it would have to be paid for by that hamlet. That's how I look at it, is it have to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think, like I have a hamlet now, well, that was owned by a developer, and it's all cost recovery right now. They paid for everything that's in there. And yeah, and if the residents want this, then we'd have to go to them and have an open house and say, here's what it's going to be, here's what the debenture is going to be, do you want it? That's the only way I could support it. But, and then if they're 100% behind it and want it, then it's a good idea. But do I want everybody in Wheatland County subsidized paying for that? No. Yeah. That's just me.
So I'll tell you what I know about it. Originally, every place in Rosebud had a well in their own field. The dinner theater come and they needed more lots, and water was no good, and the fields were, well, everybody had to live beside the field. So the residents of Rosebud put that in. They each put in some money. They got a government grant, and I believe the county put some in, and they got it engineered, and that's what they put in. It was cost effective for them at the time. They got it all in, and 20 years ago or so, I think they just turned it over to the county, and the county looked at it. They didn't look at it for a long time until it failed. Now it's failed. We're putting in a lagoon and are replacing infrastructure. So in a way, Rosebud was no different than the lakes of Muirfield. They put it in originally themselves. No different than Carsland or Galician. But now we're replacing. Every year we spend $1 million, give or take, and Carsland or Galician, replacing mains, streets, sidewalks, lift mains, pump houses. We've bought land at Galician and pivots at Clooney to maintain and upgrade the systems. No different than we upgrade and do roads in the county. Rosebud ratepayers are paying for roads in the county they don't use or bridges. It's a give or take. So I agree with you up to a point, Scott. Cost recovery, they put it in, there's no replacement. Same as the grants for this new lagoon. If it was new development, province would not put any money in. But it's replacement, and the province put in 75%, I believe. It's the same thing. Okay? So when I asked staff for further information, I wasn't thinking of hooking everything up and having an engineering study of what taking all the pumps away is going to do. I just thought if there was a way to put a gravity line from the new development, at least the obtrusive way, down to the lift station. And as time come and people wanted to hook on, we could accommodate it. Not to hook up anybody now, but as their finances, because there would be a cost to them to get rid of their septic tank. But they would trade that off the cost of having to buy a new septic tank. And there'd be cleanup involved, getting rid of the old septic tank, the pumps and everything else, and supplying lines. But as I'm looking at this map here, there is another low spot in Rosebud, down by the railway track. And if we're going to hook those people up on, there's going to have to be a lift station in there too. So I'm just kind of thinking here. Put a lift station in for 3 houses there. We'll have to wait and see. But that was my concern. If we could put in just a straight line and we could save the 20 septic tanks, the ratepayers would save that when they come to build their houses. I don't know what a septic tank is, and pipes, probably $10,000, I guess, or 20 times 20. That's a little shot in the arm just to put a pipe down the hill. It's all downhill from there. So I don't know. I talked to Jason about it. He's got a year before he gets to that point on stage. So I would just accept this as information and see what the community wants to move on it or not. But I agree with Ben, at some point, that system's going to have to be replaced. And I don't know what kind of strain these 20 new houses are going to put on it. That is I don't know how many are in the hamlet right now. I'm thinking around, 50. Half again as much. I'm not an engineer, but that's a lot more. That's my thoughts.
Councillor Armstrong just had a question about population of Rosebud. So I believe from the 2016 census, it was 87 people dwelling in 29 out of the 30 dwellings in Rosebud. 87 people, 30 total dwellings. That was the 2016 census. We should have new numbers. I don't know how long it takes. Yeah, please go ahead, Bryce.
Sorry, just through the chair, that population sounds about right. The utility users are about half that. So we have approximately 40 to 45 utility accounts in Rosebud.
Because you would have probably some commercial and the school and...
Correct.
Like other...
Correct. And I just wanted to point out, I was talking to Matt, and to answer Councillor Koister's question or statement, yes, the gravity line could be placed from River Ridge down, and I believe the original estimate, approximately 1.4 million, was our high-level estimate. It may require manholes, depending on elevations. It also may require a lift station, but that would all be decided as a capital project through the design process. Thank you.
I have real concerns about this because I have a hamlet in my division that is actually bigger. There's 3 more houses in my hamlet. So if we allow this to go ahead and say we're going to just, I don't want, it's a developer's responsibility to pay for this kind of stuff. I mean, if we sit down there and say we're going to throw $4 million into Rosebud, how do I then stop the people from, because we're going to get, eventually we're going to get some sort of servicing into the west end of the county. How do I stop anybody by saying, when they approach me in Cheadle and say, well, you spent $4 million in Rosebud, we have a hamlet exactly the same size as Rosebud, and we're not going to spend any, you want us to pay the bill? If we do this, the only way that can be done is it all has to be on this has to be a consensus amongst the people in the hamlet to pay for this. And that new subdivision, that should not even be, that's a developer's baby. Like, if we decide that developer needs to tie into the new system, that cost is on him, and he can divide that out amongst his lots. I mean, that's the only fair way for this to go forward. So we need caution here. We just can't be saying that, yeah, I know it's a beautiful thing and it's all that, but there were decisions made in the past that people have, the actions have consequences. And, they did something that supposedly they were going to only work for 10 years, and then, those kind of actions have consequences on them. Like, we're not going to have, I know we're not going to have a problem with Muirfield because there's a standard at Muirfield that it's going to be 20 years before we start digging up roads. And then it'll only be very rarely. So we have to be very, very careful on saying we're going to do something for somebody somewhere when we have other people that are going to be pouncing on this when the time comes, and say, we have to be fair. We have to be. Thank you.
Well, through the chair, when I made my comments, I wasn't expecting the county to go in there and spend the taxpayers' money on it. It's spent at the forefront, but like all our other hamlets, if we do major work in their jurisdiction, it's debentured out through debentures over 20, 25 years or whatever it is. And if we did that work in there right now, it would run approximately, just fast figuring, close to $300 a month per service for 25 years. And would they be agreeable to that? I don't know. Or would the next time something comes up along for development within the hamlet, we say, no, we can't do it unless the developer is willing to upgrade the system. Like, we can't expect to keep allowing development and running on the old system either. Right. We have to say, sorry, no more can do.
Yeah, and maybe we have to look at that right now.
But I agree with you. You do the figures, you take it to the residents and say, this is what it's going to cost you. It'll be a 25-year debenture, 30-year debenture, whatever you want to set it up as, and are you willing to pay those costs? And that can happen to Cheadle, it can happen to Gleason, Rose, it doesn't matter who it is. That's how it gets done.
That's exactly why I brought it up now, because there is a new development going to hook into old infrastructure, 20 houses, and they're going to put septic tanks in. Save the money on the septic tanks, put it towards a new line. That's all I asked for. I didn't ask for the whole hamlet to be hooked up to a new line or anything else. I'm just saying in time, it's going to happen. So in time, we don't do nothing now. We just keep on doing what we've done there before. And we won't have them 20 houses to help out on a new line. Those 20 houses, that line that septic tanks are paying for, like I'm saying, what is it? $500,000, top of my head. That $500,000 go into a new line going down to the lift station, if the developer is amenable to it. That's all I'm saying. Give them the opportunity to at least look at it. Then in the future, that line is there, then we can just hook into it, and a lot of the costs for everybody else is kind of eaten up. I mean, think into the future a little bit. There's an opportunity here to put some money into a permanent infrastructure. Right now, you're buying a temporary fix, a septic tank, putting it into an older line that maybe is not big enough. I don't know. So all I'm thinking is allow the developer to look at it. Maybe the county, if they can see, well, if we can put in $500,000 here, $1 million, and get a line to the lift station, maybe that's an investment worthwhile, and just leave it sit for now. Everything else seems to be working. But in time, you've heard the report, ends keep breaking off, old tanks, and the person has to replace a tank. I don't know what it's going to cost them, $20,000, say, or hook into a new line. What do you think? Either way, it costs some money.
So I have a question for administration. Talking about that, the new subdivision in Rosebud, it's been approved with a septic tank sort of holding type system. Can council readdress that and ask it that it's a gravity fed situation?
Good question, Councillor Eichert. So through the Reeve, just a couple of things to note, and I brought the manager of planning on the line as well, but I'll preface this with, I was going to address this question. In the report, obviously, as you indicated, that there's the septic system tanks with HDPE pipe in it. The subdivision was approved in 2018 with conditions, so those conditions are approved. There's subdivision approval already with regards to this. Development's always a negotiation, and what I'm hearing is that, there's discussion at the table to discuss with the developer on an alternative. Typically in developments, when subdivision is approved, if costs do escalate, that kind of goes off the table, because already subdivision has been approved with the conditions and the plan provided. The plan is in the file. This kind of system is in the file. It is approved. So that raises some difficulties here with regards to the discussion. We are right now at a point in time where we are at the development agreement stage. We are nearing endorsement. So it's kind of like we're almost there as staff. So all the pieces are coming together. Should a conversation take place, should that be the direction, then we can have that discussion. It could be a tough one to do. There are road upgrades on Glide that we're talking about, as Councillor Kester is aware, that we're working through. Parking issues, we're almost there. So it is a tough one to kind of tangle with at this point in time. There's always an opportunity to do it, but I just wanted to reinforce to council that subdivision has already been given approval for this with the associated drawings, engineering, etc., for this particular development. And Sherry, if you are on the line, please feel free to supplement my comments. Thanks.
Good morning. This is Sherry speaking. Yes, everything Matt has indicated is that the developer, are reaching the end of meeting and fulfilling their subdivision conditions. They had a extension granted last fall, and it expires October 7th, 2021. They are in the final stages of getting cost estimates based on construction drawings with off-site improvements approved by MPC in 2018. And those drawings and cost estimates for securities to post were based on that approval they have. If we have that conversation, the concern for the developer will be the delays that it would cause them. They are hoping to start construction here sometime this summer. And that's what they've been working to achieve, is getting the subdivision endorsed to create the type and start on-site prep work. So they're pretty far along at this point.
Any other questions?
My question would be, was this discussion had when this development was originally brought forward? I think we approved it, and I don't remember a bunch of discussion. The only thing that's changed here is we upgraded a septic field for the whole of the hamlet to a lift station and a lagoon system that was needed there. That's the only thing that we've done. Hasn't changed any infrastructure within the hamlet itself other than provide a septic field that was not working at all, a system of, like, the lift station that there was needed to pump it up to the lagoon. It solves the problem there, but we haven't changed any of the infrastructure within the hamlet at all. So I just don't know if this was a big discussion back when this development was first brought forward, because that's my question.
Scott, it wasn't even planned for a lagoon when this development was first brought forward. This lift station is just a couple of years, and there was a symbiotic that was going to handle the wastewater in Rosebud, and that really never did pan out, and we were just all kind of waiting on that. So no, it wasn't. A lift station wasn't even dreamed about when this River Ridge come along. So I know what staff is saying to be true. I know that. All I'm saying is if the developer wants to entertain this, give them the opportunity to talk, or at least talk about it. Maybe it's too late and they want to get moving on. I'm okay with that. I'm just thinking if there was an opportunity to save money in the future, we should take it. But I know time is money too. And if they want to move on, fine, we'll put it in and be good with it, and somebody else will have to deal with it. But there was or is maybe a chance to do something different. I don't know. If that ship has sailed, well, then it's sailed. All I'm asking for was the opportunity.
If I may add to that, that's correct. The lift station and that was not available at the time that subdivision was approved. However, during the course of the time with the expansion and the lagoons being added, some of the conditions, because they were added in the event that they had to do the septic system and the interim septic solution, that's come off the table. So they have been willing to adapt as we've moved along with changes in Rosebud. So we're willing to have that conversation, as Councillor Kester has suggested, and give them the option.
Thank you.
And just through the Reeve, just to council, should that be the direction, I mean, we will immediately execute that conversation and then figure out the best path forward in the near future, because like the planning department has just indicated, they are looking to start this relatively soon, and we are at the finish line with all the pieces falling together.
Okay, so if what I'm hearing is now, if the developer is willing to install this line or whatever, maybe it's more cost effective for him, and if he wants to talk about that, I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want us to incur any penalties with the developer or anything like that. And be very clear that this, if it's something that he wants, maybe it's cheaper for him not to put in all these tanks and to do all this, and it works out better for him. That's fine, but I don't want us to put ourselves in this position where we've delayed that developer and end up in court over it. That's as blunt as I can be. So that's where I'm from.
And staff agrees with that.
Any other questions or discussion? And Councillor Kester, did you make a motion to accept his information? I believe I heard a motion was put on the floor.
I don't know if I did or not. If I didn't, I'll do it now.
Okay, perfect. Any further discussion or questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Does administration need any further direction? No?
We do not.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Does council need a break or do we want to move on?
Sure.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Mute off.
We'll call the meeting back to order. We're going to move to 4.24, bridge maintenance.
Good morning, Council. Brian from Administration. On page 81 of the Council package is bridge maintenance RFD. There are approximately 9 bridge files that need some maintenance to be completed this year. The cost is around $220,000. We figure with some contingencies, it'll come to around $240,000. Hopefully, there's a little bit less. They do mostly fall under operating just due to the nature of the cost. Each bridge file needs approximately $20,000 worth of repairs on them, and our capital threshold policy for infrastructure is $25,000. So the bridge inspections were completed over the winter. We may have just kind of missed getting this into the operating budget when it was approved by council in April. Our bridge inspections are done by a third party as well. So the process would be is that we take these identified bridge files that need action. We send them off to McElhaney. McElhaney puts them into a tendering package and puts them out for bid. So we do either have that ready to go or it is fairly close to being ready to go. We do want to complete these in 2021 as well. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions?
I just have another bridge. It's really a big culvert, not even that big. But on that Rocky Ford Road, I'm thinking they might pave that this year. That's still on, kind of, or not? Or
yes, Councillor Kester through the chair. So I have been talking to our manager of operations about that one, and I will get you an update on that one by the end of this week.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on the bridge maintenance? Council's wishes. No, authorizing expenditure.
Just move the recommendation down.
I will move the recommendation.
There you go.
Councillor Baker has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed?
Oh, that's why I was.
Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.25, Muirfield lot sales.
Bryce from Administration, Muirfield lot sales, additional lots. This is more of a housekeeping item. When we brought forward the list of Muirfield lots for sale, 2 lots were omitted from the package. On the diagram or on the map, you can see all the lots on this cul-de-sac were included in the package, the original package council approved. The last 2 lots circled in blue were missed, just a clerical error. So we're bringing forward a request to add those 2 lots to the package, to the approved lot sales, with the same rates and prices as the other lots on that cul-de-sac. Are there any questions?
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.31, Corporate and Financial Services Report.
Good morning again, Council. Tracy from Administration. I have an addition to my report to Council. As you are aware, the province has indicated the intent to conduct province-wide Senate selection as well as referendum votes in conjunction with the municipal election. Alberta Municipal Affairs is responsible for ensuring the conduct of the votes for electors residing in improvement districts, summer villages, special areas, the City of Lloydminster, the Alberta side, and First Nations, as these communities do not hold municipal elections on October 18th. After my report was submitted to the agenda, I was contacted by Municipal Affairs, who asked if the county would like to enter into an agreement to conduct the Senate election and referendum votes for Siksika Nation, specifically for the residents on the reserve. The population there is 4,327. Subtract voters under 18 years of age. They also requested that we offer special ballots. So although we were looking at not having special ballots, we will move forward with that. And then just of note, the province will be offering a grant to cover the costs of the Senate and referendum for both the county and Siksika Nation. Are there any questions for that part? Okay.
You need a motion.
I do not. I did ask Municipal Affairs and they said I don't require a council motion. However, I could add that in with special ballot at that time, so at the next meeting. So other highlights of my report, we have sent out the request for information forms and we're receiving a favorable response. And in information technology, we're updating the network and computer equipment at water treatment plants. GIS, in collaboration with staff, are working on recreation facility maps, updating fire district maps for the fire halls around the county. And in asset management, we spoke to FCM after the date of this report, and they did confirm that they're looking at our grant application October or November of this year, and again, just to the number of high applications. So it looks like we are on the right track for the start date of Q1 2022 for that project.
And through the chair, remind me again what those special ballots are for.
The special ballots? So there's 3 reasons why you can ask for a special ballot. So if it's a physical disability, if you're an election staff and you need to vote, and then also if you are out of district. So if you're on a holiday or something like that. So in speaking to Municipal Affairs, I said, well, I want to follow those rules. And they said that you would qualify under out of district because they're out of the county. I think that's subsection 2 of the section, and that's why it would be okay to do that.
Thank you.
Any questions on my report?
Anybody have any questions? A motion to accept for information.
Also move.
Councillor Eichert has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.32, broadband update.
Good morning, Redland Council. My name is Amanda Garner, and I'm the project consultant with Tricon Solutions for the Wheatland County Strategic Broadband Initiative. The broadband project update starts on page 92 of the agenda, and I'm looking for this report to be passed as information. At the top of the report, you will see the project timeline in green. It has been updated to reflect the current status as of the date of this report's submission. The report is, the project is progressing on schedule and on budget. Currently, a draft of the Wheatland County Broadband Strategic Plan is just being finalized in preparation for council submission. The strategic plan will be submitted to council for the July 6th council meeting. The RFP process has been initiated. The team anticipates that the public RFP to be open for responses at the beginning of June. In order to receive the most responses possible and to encourage vendors to apply, the team will be contacting vendors that have expressed interest in responding to advise them the RFP is open and taking responses. It is anticipated that the RFP will be open until the end of June to allow respondents enough time to adequately prepare and respond. The county RFP process will be followed, and council will be provided with a recommendation option in the August 24th council meeting. This completes the broadband project update. Thank you.
Any questions regarding the broadband work?
Amanda, I'd like to ask, there's a new tower going up just north of Speargrass. Do you know which company that is?
I do, not offhand. I can get it for you, though.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? A motion to accept for information?
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Move to 4.33, investment policy.
Council, on page 97 of the agenda is the new amended investment policy 2.5. As mentioned at the last council meeting, administration has created a more detailed investment policy to establish and maintain practices and procedures for investments of funds held by the county. This investment policy applies to all investment transactions involving the financial assets of the county and must be applied by any party managing county investments. If council has any questions about the policy or investing, we have James Hobson and Sheree Shahal on the line from CIBC Wood Gundy Hobson Shahal Advisory Group. Are there any questions?
Questions from council?
I have one. I'm thinking it's the policy, shares and control corporation. And you have there, Wheatland County has preferred shares in Wheatland Regional Service Corporation. I don't believe we have any preferred shares in that corporation. So is this policy going to allow us to acquire the shares, or why is that stated in there like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Kester, my understanding is we have Class A shares.
We have Class A common shares, but we have no preferred shares.
Okay, I could definitely amend.
There's a difference. There are a difference, but I'm still pushing the county's leaving a few $1 million in preferred shares on the table if we don't acquire them before everyone forgets about them.
We can amend preferred shares to read Class A common shares. And should that change, we would amend this policy to reflect that change.
Okay, so would this policy be amenable to the county acquiring preferred shares?
To the chair, Brian from administration, yes, of course. If that is the case, then the policy could just be amended. Okay. And my apologies. I think we must have just miswrote that little section about the common shares.
Okay. Yeah, I do see in our shareholders register that we have 25 Class A common shares. Perhaps just for simplicity, and I don't know if this is acceptable for the policy, but if we could just say Wheatland County has shares, and then that would leave it open to, it would include the common that we have, and if preferred are sorted, then the policy would still be aligned. If that, unless there's a reason.
Yes, so the chair, that amendment to the policy would work. Yes, we have pulled it up. So the 25 Class A shares that the county does have, so they're Class A common voting shares. And the reason we have those it's just for voting purposes. The assigned amount is 10 cents per share, so it's a very nominal amount to the county.
Any other questions or discussion on the amended policy and the appointment of CIBC Wood Gundy? Or any questions for the managers of the investment portfolio? I want to thank administration for revisiting this. I remember when we looked at it before, and this looks like it is a really good opportunity to maximize our returns and preserve our reserves as well. So I commend you for bringing this forward, and I'm excited to see the impact that this can have. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Council's wishes.
I'll move the recommendation.
I move that we...
Deputy Reeve Clausen beat you just slightly, Councillor Kester. So Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved to amend the policy and appoint CIBC Wood Gundy to manage as recommended. Any questions or discussion?
Sorry, just for clarification, is that just to take off the word preferred?
Yeah, so the only amendment to the proposed amended policy would be to remove the word preferred.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.41, Community and Development Services.
Good morning, Council. Matt from Administration here to present the Community and Development Services report found on page 105 of your agenda package. Just a couple highlights from each division, some exciting work being done. Obviously on page 105 you see the figure there. We're beginning to plan the coordination of the Eagle Lake Access Point capital project as approved by Council moving forward. Our next quarter plans for community services, incorporation of engagement information into the draft master plan document. Administration and staff have had a look at this, so we're very excited to kind of refine it, get it fine-tuned and in front of Council to get it approved. Prepare the report to present the landscape and screening guidelines. Very excited that that is in the agenda package today for approval. And we've obviously begun discussing rec cost sharing, so we'll be continuing that moving forward. In community services, on a page 106 of your agenda package, economic development updates, quite exciting as well. We're moving forward with the next level logo, so we're going to start planning to unveil the corporate identity to the county and move forward with obviously the defined pricing for the tier 1 signage, so quite exciting on that, and we'll be moving forward and Council will be apprised of those updates as we continue on. The WC Conversations, our online content for both ECDev and investment attraction, is definitely kind of snowballing in the right direction. So we're getting a lot of attention, a lot of attraction with regards to the podcasts and our online content, and refining that moving forward. So our action plan for investment attraction is one of those items that we're moving forward with that plan that Council approved. So we're working with actually many different inquiries that are coming forward. We're going to be excited to kind of talk to Council about those as we move forward in that regard with investment attraction and development. For fire and emergency services, very exciting work being done on the Carsland Fire Hall, of course. So on page 108 of the agenda package, you'll see some of those milestones with what the fire hall is you know, the progress of the fire halls. So obviously you see the mobilization all the way to the in progress. So the interior framing, metal stairs, framing and stands, and preparation of the underground water and sanitary install. And I think Fortis is also kind of come into place. So we're getting all that stuff set up nicely, still on target in terms of the trajectory of when we can kind of break ground towards the end of August. And staff here we're already talking about planning a unveiling. So we're getting to that stage. Very exciting work being done by the fire team in that regard. Moving forward to, you can see the pictures on page 110. We'll have some updated ones, of course. Page 110 to 111, the actuals for the development planning and safety codes applications. I'm finding that development is actually, our development permits are higher than normal coming in, which is quite exciting as well. So people are getting back to work with applying for those development permits. Our communication strategies are working, our education strategies are working online in terms of informing ratepayers and interested parties on how to apply for permits and the rest. So quite exciting news on that. You'll see the actuals there. In terms of protective services on page 112, one of the items I'd like to note, and the officers and I have talked about this as well, is that there's a lot of speeding happening, a lot more speeding. So we're putting out some communications, just reminders on some of the speed limits in the county. So we're putting that forward today. But otherwise, that's my report. If there's any questions.
Any questions?
Just a comment. Could you send me a copy of your graph for your 2021 dispatch calls?
Absolutely, Councillor Armstrong.
I have two
know
questions.
I could do it off of this and run it, but you guys have it. You can hit a couple of buttons and it comes to you much faster than it comes to me.
We'll send council dispatch calls. We'll send you guys the figures.
Thanks.
I have two questions. On page 106, what is youth fire setter conversation Carsland? Oh, okay. I thought that might be it, but I didn't know. So okay.
There was fire started by youth, just to reiterate that on the microphone.
By youth. So kind of education and informing them of impacts of their actions, things like that. Okay, wonderful. Actually, the other one, it's kind of a question. It's a huge thank you. The map that Ben was just referencing on page 108, the location of incidents, that is awesome. That's perfect. It's so easy to see like where the call volumes are, where the actual incidents are happening. So thank you so much for that. And just a small question. Will this data be informing kind of future decisions around capital planning or that type of thing? Okay, so you'll aggregate it kind of on an annual basis. Okay, awesome. If you do the aggregate, could that also just be shared with council just for context? Okay, awesome.
Yes to all the above, just for those on the line, Madam Mayor.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? A motion to accept the report as information?
I'll move that we accept the report as information. Thank you.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.42.
Good morning, Council. Just on page 123 of your agenda, you will find the RFD. So I'll just read out the recommendation and then just do a quick synopsis of the report. So the recommendation is that Council permanently closes the Clooney Fire Hall due to lack of volunteers in the area and direct administration to implement the emergency services strategy for the Gleason Fire Department with secondary coverage from the Hazard Fire Department, and further that Council direct administration to prepare a plan to reallocate the various apparatus and assets from the Clooney Fire Hall and report back to Council during the budget 2022 deliberations. So a brief history, as you guys are aware, in 2019, the Clooney Fire Hall was closed by Wheatland County Fire Services due to health and safety concerns. Fortunately, at that time, we were able to bring it back up to the standard and the level that was required. That was in early 2020. Literally a year ago, so on the 28th of May, 2020, we had new administration start, which was myself and Deputy Jukes, and we had met several times, the first meeting being the 28th, with the Clooney Fire Chief, but basically just regarding our expectations and the minimum level and standard that they needed to maintain. From that time until today's date, so a year later, there was 20 separate incidents where we talked to the chief, met with the chief with zero effort kind of reciprocated. Anything from training, there was no training being completed, the DVIRs weren't being completed, there was no checks, there was no maintenance of the station, as well as no interest from the members. So through our strategy, what we decided to do, obviously, is we wanted to mentor them, assist them, and obviously give them the resources that were required to be successful. So throughout that process, we had several meetings that we had scheduled that were canceled last minute. We had offered training with Gleason Fire Department, and unfortunately, it just never evolved to the expectations or even the minimum standard that was required. On the date was January 20th, 2020. All of the firefighters resigned. They didn't resign because of pressures. It was simply resignation because they couldn't commit anymore. And that they wanted to do it. Their hearts were there. They didn't have the time. They didn't have the commitment to do it. So that was the reason for the resignation. The next day, we had a fire chiefs meeting. We discussed a contingency plan. We got commitment from Gleason and Hazar fire departments to assist in coverage in that area. And during that time, we had a 3-month recruitment. That recruitment included public engagement. It included all the fire chiefs to maybe talk to some past members that were at the department, try to bring back some past recruits. And unfortunately, we yielded no recruits whatsoever. We did successfully get some applicants for other departments throughout the county, which is a positive news story about that recruitment, but unfortunately, nothing in the Clooney area. We met again at the next fire chiefs meeting in April, and I spoke with the fire chiefs. That was April 15th. I let them know, obviously, that we yielded no applicants, and that basically give them the explanation of what we've done, what we've attempted, and all fire chiefs are in agreement that we've done everything that we can as a county. We're all also in agreement that it's unfortunate because at one time it was a very, very strong department, but things change and people change and the community changes. So the recommendation would be now to permanently close it and reallocate the resources accordingly throughout the county. So we've got a capital committee meeting coming up on August 5th. And I'd like to sit down with the associations and relocate the resources. We do have for resources, obviously there's the building. We've got a 2007 Freightliner fire engine. We've got a 2011 Freightliner tender. And we've got a 2012 Ford F-350 bush buggy. So I have some ideas that I'll present at the capital committee for approval by the associations and the fire chiefs. So that concludes my report. If there's any questions.
Is there any funding owed to the Clooney group, or is that all settled?
From my understanding, it's all settled, yes. So that transfer has all been complete. And this is a county run department.
Just, sorry, Matt from administration, just a little clerical error. I just want to point out on the second paragraph in the report, a meeting was scheduled at the Clooney Fire Hall for Monday, January 4th, 2021, as opposed to 2020, and also January 20th, 2021, just so council's aware. Apologies.
That was scheduled for 2021. It was in this year, 2021. Yeah, so the schedule, yeah, exactly. 2021 is the correct, sorry. There's a lot of occurrences into the report here.
Just for clarification for me, when you mentioned that you talked with the fire chiefs, that includes the villages and
So I'll let them know. No, I haven't talked to the actual villages about it, like the CAOs of the villages. No.
You mean fire chiefs? I think he means fire chiefs.
Yes,
for all.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. When I say fire chief, so we've got an operational committee of the fire chiefs, and that includes every fire chief.
Okay,
So there's no. Yeah, we don't separate. We don't separate that operationally whatsoever.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Just to confirm, so, and I did read it, there are not anticipated impacts to insurance rates for community members.
No, there isn't. So the fire underwriters, they obviously they do a survey. So the best you can get for residential is a level 1, which would be a career department. Level 5 means no fire protection. And then for commercial, it also goes from 1 to 10. 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. Clooney right now is rated a 5-10. So they're right now they're rated as 0 fire protection for the insured, for the county residents in that area. So yeah, your answer is no, there's no impact on insurance.
I know that was one concern that was raised previously when we were looking at like amalgamating or something like that.
Right.
So.
I'll move the recommendation. I think it's the right decision.
Councillor Wilson has made a motion. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Just on behalf of council, thank you. I think the process was very respectful, and I'm really thankful to see that we did put the effort in that was made to continue operations there. I think that was really important to do that, and I also just wanted to thank you for consulting with the fire chiefs, because I think that's really important just for the cohesiveness of our fire service, and yeah, just grateful for that, for sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
We will move to 4.43.
Good morning, Council. Dave from Administration. Just presenting the landscape and screening guidelines. Administration had been fielding inquiries about landscaping expectations from the county for development activities. The land use bylaw does address broad requirements, but nothing specific on expectations based on diverse development activities and locations. Administration researched best practices of other municipalities with the intent to ensure future developments maintain or enhance visual quality. The landscape and screening guidelines are intended to serve as a resource to provide landowners proposing development activities guidelines to provide different landscaping and screening methods that the county may seek to create a positive visual impact of properties. This document was circulated to internal departments and divisions for comments. The Agriculture Division did provide a list of invasive species that would not be considered, which is included in the guidelines. That concludes my report, and I can answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions? Council's wishes? Coffee? Anyone?
Somebody do it. I've already been on this.
Espresso?
I'll move the recommendation from administration for the landscaping and screening guidelines.
Councillor Armstrong has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. And again, just thank you for, I know there was a substantial amount of effort that went into this, and I think it will be really useful for developers and just to give clarity around what the expectations are and best practices, and should help increase the success of landscaping that's done with the screening and that type of thing. So thank you. I've already actually consulted it personally. So even for residents, actually, it is a good document if we may want to, share it widely, because it has really good information just about what plants or species might thrive here or do best, and features of them and things like that. So
Madam Reeve just met from Admin, just good point, and we'll definitely be sharing these guidelines that we've developed them, they're approved, and
yeah, and I think even if there was a note that even if you're not a developer per se, that there is really valuable information contained within it.
For sure.
If that's council's, if council's all right with
you
that.
do you.
All right, thank you so much. We will move to 4.44, Bow River Access Point.
I thought it was operational again.
It is.
Sorry? Oh, yes, it says that in the report, sorry.
Thanks. Good morning, Council. It's Dave Ryan from Administration. I'm just providing an update on the Bow River access point. At the May 18th meeting, Council asked staff to check into a caretaker agreement, and when we contacted Alberta Transportation, we found out that they had done a land survey, the landowner had, and the boat launch was actually on private property. So AT was going to remove the concrete barriers, which they have. I confirmed that. They've been removed. As well, Council also directed staff to draft a letter to send to the MLA regarding the process around closing the boat launch and to gather more information on that. So we're waiting to hear back from the MLA on that. That will probably give us more information and then how we can proceed and report back to Council after that. So I can answer any questions.
Any questions? So the letter was sent, and we'll make sure everybody receives the response. A motion to accept the report as information.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Baker has moved. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, easy.
Is any councillor opposed?
2 years ago.
Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.45, Recreation and Parks Proclamation.
Good morning, Council. Before you is the Recreation and Parks Proclamation that annually comes from the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association, known as ARPA, and municipalities are passing the proclamation to recognize Parks and Recreation Month within their respective municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I'm just going to tell you my 3 favorite Ron Swanson quotes to really throw this nice Parks and Rec into. So I'll start with I have so many ideas. Some are simple: take down traffic lights, eliminate the post office. Some are tougher, like how to bring this all crumbling down. So that one's really good, just one of my favorites. But then the Parks and Rec, it fits really nicely into this. I don't want this Parks and Rec department to build any parks because I don't believe in government. All government is a waste of taxpayers' money. And then just to finish it off, that really hammers it down. I think the entire government should be privatized. Chuck E. Cheese could run the parks. Everything operated by tokens. Drop a token, go on a swing. Drop another token, take a walk. Drop a token, and you can look at a duck. So that is the way I see Parks and Rec. So I don't think I will be supporting the declaration of Recs and Park Week.
Well, if you get to share Ron Swanson quotes, I'll share Leslie Nopes. What I hear when I'm being yelled at are people carrying loudly at me. So we've deteriorated to this now. Council's wishes. We've heard Councillor Wilson's perspective.
What are we doing?
Mike.
Thank you.
I'll ask again, like I do with all this, and I'll ask it again later on. But anyways, so we proclaim the month of June as Parks and Recreation Month. So what? Are we going to go out there and wave flags? Are we going to go out there and do anything spectacular in June? Are we just saying, yeah? We should have a parade. If you camp in June, we recognize. If you camp in July, we don't. Huh? Yeah, like it.
I want to see that street.
No, I don't either. I could care less. You want to go proclaim it, go ahead and proclaim it. I just can't understand why we proclaim all this stuff and we never do anything. What we do is done all year long, and when spring starts, we start. If we're working on Parks and Recreation, we start when the snow leaves and we quit when the snow comes back again. But to declare 1 month special for some reason or another doesn't make any damn sense to me. So, sorry. I don't care. I'm not going to vote against it because it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. It's just.
Is there any suggestions from staff that we can do something?
Oh, that's the problem. That's right.
That includes a price tag, though? Unless we have a Leslie Knope that's going to do the work of 10 people, we're not going to do anything like that for tokens.
Why do we get all these things? Where does this all come from anyways?
Look, can we ask administration not to bring any of these proclamations forward so that we don't have to have this discussion? Because I agree with you 100%. This is virtue signaling at its highest. Not as high as the next one that's going to be coming down the pike, but this one's pretty high. I mean, it doesn't make, like, I think our job is, if we have a park and a recreation area, is to inform our ratepayers that we have a park and a recreation.
Which I think we do a good job.
And
yeah, we are doing that.
And so why do we need to do anything else? I mean, it's somebody somewhere feels better about this. I know it isn't me. I mean, I love parks and recreation. The show. I love the fact there are parks and people can go recreate in them. I love that. Does this make me a bad person when I say this is stupid? I don't know.
Well, here's if you want to get really stupid. Here they're encouraging people to go to the parks, and for the last 2 years, if you go to a park, you get a fine. You get thrown out. Jesus. Sorry. Anyways.
GM Buscario.
Yep. Absolutely. So just a couple comments. Typically, these proclamations, they come from the professional associations and they send them to all the municipalities. Certainly, if council wishes, staff, administration, if you direct us to, we will not bring any more proclamations forward. And some municipalities do that.
I guess my further question is to be a little more sensible. When they ask for these proclamations, do they compile a list of that? Then go to the government and say, these are all the municipalities that support us. Give us another $100 million.
I do not know. Certainly we can look into that. I know from...
Don't look into it. Don't waste your time.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that...
Yeah, maybe.
Where they get all their funding.
I know I've stated this before, but I'll just reiterate it. I think at times certain proclamations can be useful in raising awareness. And actually, Deputy Reeve Clausen, can I quote what you said to me this morning?
Sure. I don't remember what I said.
No, it wasn't bad. He just said, like, it just seems like they're trying to get free advertising. And I said, essentially, that is what they're doing. It's an effective way for someone like, so this one is put forward by the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association and just Alberta Recreation and Parks Association. I'm going to assume that they don't have a large advertising budget. And so this is one mechanism that different, especially nonprofits or smaller budgeted associations can essentially get free advertising, raise awareness about things. The thing with the drowning request coming up later, I know we can chuckle about that and whatever, but there are times where you see something. The example I gave to Scott this morning is during Fire Week when that's proclaimed and we highlight that on our social media or on our website, there are actionable items within that. And I do have annual reminders on my phone to practice certain things within our family and, check equipment and that type of thing, but that can tweak somebody to do some of those safety things, or like drowning could, remind parents to check the weight limits on their life jackets, or there are advocacy things that we could share as a municipality that can impact our ratepayers positively. This one specifically, I actually think parks have been a refuge for people over the last almost year and a half, I guess. And that I think we have recognized the importance of them both for gathering spaces and just for all of the health benefits, both mental and physical. Another positive that I see with some of the proclamations is some of them recognize the good work that is done by our administrative team, whether it's in our under our recreation department, or whether I know ones have come forward for different specialists that we have within our team. And I think it is good to recognize the work that they do when their professional organization brings it forward. So I agree that I don't necessarily want to expend, a huge amount of money, but if our communications team has capacity to share some of these things where we can raise awareness, and perhaps the odds are low, but if somebody does check, for example, make sure that their life jackets are still the appropriate weight limit, or reviews some other thing around that, or is just reminded, I don't even know what we have for recreation in Wheatland County, and it might be just a time, because they say June is the time, I think they said greening of, I won't find it, but it's a good time to highlight what we do have in Wheatland County, and some of our community groups have put a lot of effort into some of the amenities that we have, and the county has supported that. And I see nothing wrong with highlighting it. I don't want to spend a ton of money on it, but that's my 2 cents, and I very well may be in the minority, and I recognize that. A hanky? I have one.
Is there no way you can put something up that we recognize all this without every 2 months playing something as a special?
Your microphone.
Just, if you can just turn your microphone on and reiterate that.
Then when something comes through, all the staff has to do is send a note back. The county recognizes it, but we don't have to keep bringing it in here and having a motion that says, we recognize this month for this, and we recognize this month for that. We're cognizant of all that work that's going on out there, and we support it. And that's what we send back. And that's what rather than, I don't know, it just seems silly bringing these. Because we got another, like you mentioned, this life-saving thing, this for drowning. And they talk about supervised children in and around the water. Who the hell's supposed to do that? Not me. Not unless they're my kids.
We could hire somebody.
It says urges individuals to. It's an awareness issue.
Intoxication. What do you do? Sit there with give me a break.
So the sentence before that, Councillor Armstrong, it says during this week, the society urges individuals to. So it's a raising of awareness. My only concern, if we just kind of carte blanche said approve them all, is if there was something, like I do think it's appropriate to have governance over what is proclaimed as a county, just in case there was something that was not aligned with.
Why? I mean, we've got higher levels of government celebrating communism on May long. International Workers' Day? I'm sorry, that's Communism Day. So the bar's pretty low. If they've approved that, we can approve it.
So, but that's a good example. If we did a carte blanche resolution, like that any request coming to administration is approved, then something like that could be approved.
It's already approved.
Well, not at a municipal level with our support is what I'm saying. So I think it's appropriate for us to have governance over this. It could literally take us 30 seconds to say, I move the recommendation, and we could move past this as quickly as we do.
My only concern, and I'll put a motion on the floor that we accept it as information, but my only concern is once you accept this, somebody's going to come up eventually and say, well, if you recognize them, what are you doing about it? Why aren't you spending money here? Why aren't you spending money?
But that might be a good opportunity to answer that. It raises that question, and then it gives us an opportunity. I would love to have an opportunity to share what we've done through CURB and through some of our other funding programs, through community initiatives that we support. and share that with
I can do
residents.
that. Come up and ask me the question, but I don't need a proclamation out there to get the question out.
No, but that was a concern that you had if we do this, that it could initiate that.
It will. Anyways, I'll leave my motion on there to accept it as information. You can vote it down if you want. I don't care.
Councillor Armstrong has a motion to accept as information. Any further questions or discussion? I will be voting in opposition because I do support the proclamation.
You can put a motion on it after.
Okay, that's fine. Any councillor opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, we'll just do a quick roll call vote. Reeve Link in favor. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Opposed.
Councillor Wilson.
In favor.
Councillor Bigger. We're voting to accept as information.
Oh, then I'm in favor of that.
Okay, Deputy Reeve Clausen is in favor. Councillor Wilson.
In favor.
Councillor Bigger.
In favor.
Councillor Eichert.
In favor.
Councillor Kester.
Opposed.
Councillor Armstrong.
In favor.
I will put a second motion arising the recommendation that Council proclaims June Recreation and Parks Month in Wheatland County in recognition of the benefits and values that recreation, parks, and leisure services provide the community. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Reeve Link is in favor. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
Opposed.
Councillor Wilson.
Opposed.
Councillor Bigger.
Favor.
Sorry?
In favor.
Okay. Councillor Eichert.
I'm opposed on the grounds that this is... I'm opposed, sorry.
Councillor Kester.
In favor.
Councillor Armstrong.
Opposed.
Motion fails.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor. I'd like to recognize August 23rd, Black Ribbon Day.
Do you want to give us more information?
Black Ribbon Day is the anniversary. Oh, it's to commemorate those lost against Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. The victims of those totalitarian socialist governments. Thank you.
I just have to confirm, validate your information so that I know what I'm voting on. Is there any questions or discussion?
Yes, I would like more information.
That day?
What?
You saying you want us to recognize that day?
If we're recognizing something as stupid as Parks and Rec, Drowning Week or whatever, we do it all the time. We're going to do it for something that actually means something.
So are you going to put Armistice Day in there? Are you going to put...
No, just that day.
Remember it? Are you going to
just that day.
And then you're going to do that again. So you're doing exactly what we argued against.
Yeah, I'm going to do it every time for things I find important now.
If you wouldn't mind just doing it in advance so that we can thoroughly review the information.
Could you bring it back next?
Yeah, could you bring it back
For next council meeting?
with some information just for us to review? That would, because then we're not. Okay, I will find what I will ask you to do. Give me one moment.
Asking for
Council?
a tabling motion.
I believe this is in our procedure bylaw, so this would be a notice of motion that you're putting on the table. So,
or you would need, we would need a council.
So you're giving notice to council that you'll be bringing this back to the next council meeting. Your request.
And if you wouldn't mind providing an RFD just so that we can review the information in advance to be included. So it would need to be in prior to the next agenda package.
That's fine.
So you'll withdraw your motion?
I'll table I'll give a notice of motion for...
If you can just withdraw the motion that's on the floor first.
Withdraw the motion and give a notice of motion for next meeting.
Okay. I had a question for Matthew. The train whistle in Carsland. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
is there something coming back?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So next council meeting, I'm going to review the report probably tomorrow. We've compiled all the information.
Okay.
A lot of uptake on that, so it was a successful engagement.
Okay.
And then I'll bring it back to council for the next meeting.
Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, and one more thing. Oh, I guess that's not you though. Transportation, the 817 and 24, the realignment. It's probably for Brian. There's been a lot of like surveyors out there and stuff, and people are wondering, is there anything sent to us from transportation that gives a map of what the new highway is going to look like that we can engage the residents with?
It's on our website.
Councillor, yes, it is on our website, but I will pull up a link and maybe I'll get, see if I can get communications to put something forward and get it fresh on our Facebook page too.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There was a news release on it. It's on our website, and I also confirmed when that came out that that's a provincial project and that we aren't expending any funds on it. So just so that that's clear. But yeah, it shows the realignment and there's a good map there.
I'll send it to the website.
Yeah,
then. I never noticed it there. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move to 5.1, correspondence. We had correspondence regarding the Municipal Sustainability Initiative MSI funding from the Minister of Municipal Affairs. We had a letter from the town of High River regarding the coal policy, and a thank you from the Strathmore Handy Bus. And as well, we had an addition from the Life Saving Society regarding National Drowning Prevention Week.
Well, they guaranteed that MSI, they were getting rid of that a few years ago, and now we're still getting it. How long is that going to keep coming? Do we know? Have they made
they were going to transition to the LGFF, Local Government Fiscal Framework. They have delayed that, the transition to that new program. Our MSI is, so we are anticipating 3 years of MSI. Brian can jump in on this as well. It's kind of front-loaded, so we're receiving a lot more this year, and then it's substantially reduced for next year and the year after. And then in 3 years, we're anticipating that we will transition to that LGFF framework, but we don't know what that framework will look like yet. So we should, it looks like the MSI should be, like we should be able to count on next year and the year after's reduced amounts. I believe it was
23 would be the last year.
Yeah, I believe the overall budget for that was reduced by 25% over the 3 years, but we're actually seeing more this year. So in the following 2 years, we see substantial reductions. I think it was sort of a stimulus focus to front load it that way. Any other questions? Council's wishes.
I'll make a motion to accept the correspondence as information.
Any questions or discussion?
I've got one question on this letter from High River, these coal reduction. Is there the municipalities that these coal mines are in? Have they issued a response to any of this? I really worry about the direction that this goes, that whether or not there is a perceived damage to be done, that we are not eliminating a huge source of revenue for a municipality by having them not being able to get revenue from their taxation from the coal mining business. So that's what I worry about when I see this, especially when they're concerted like this, that coal is so not cool anymore. But a lot of these places, I would assume that, like in Hinton and that kind of stuff, I'm not sure what else they can do with that. You know, like they're never going to make up that lack of revenue if that was to be taken away from them. So I would like to know more information on this. I'd like to hear from the municipalities that actually have these, and I don't know if that's doable or not, or whether they've reached out to the other counties and say, look, at this is going to impact us drastically? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So just going off the top of my head, I know, like, I read a fair amount about the call policy and the impacts on different areas of Alberta. I'm trying to find a specific article that I read, and I'm not finding it immediately, but so take this with a grain of salt, I'll put it that way. I do recall Crow's Nest Pass, Pincher Creek, some of those areas. I'm not sure, but I don't know if it was from a municipal perspective or if it was from a commercial perspective or an industry perspective about the economic opportunities and just how discussions around this need to be measured and like the trade-offs need to be examined, things like that. But
and that is exactly what I want that's got to be brought forward, because the city of Calgary decides that they want to make a lobby, and they got 1.3 million people, and they want to ban fracking. That's going to directly impact us. It doesn't affect them per se, but it does impact us. So we have, this looks, if you look at it and go, yeah, it's dirty and all this kind of stuff, but I don't know if it is. There's a perception that it is, and these are all done. There's a lot of stuff going behind it. So I just want to be really, really cautious about anything that we're doing here that affects another municipality, right? I understand that there could be concerns to High River because of water pollution. I understand that. But we make trade-offs in everyday life. And if we eliminate coal mining and say we're not going to do this anymore, then we are impacting a whole bunch of other people's lives, right? So I just want caution on this kind of stuff here. So if we could get both sides of the story when...
So right now, we just have a motion on the floor to accept this as information, which I think it is good to hear all the perspectives, and I agree with you, because it is a really complex issue. There are very valid concerns with selenium, water quality, landscape. All of those things are significant concerns, but there are other perspectives on it as well. I think if individual councillors, because this isn't really under the purview of us as a municipality, other than if there were an advocacy angle that we felt strongly to bring to the province, like if we were directly impacted, if there's I'm curious about that as well. So I'd probably just encourage you to interface with the province or participate in engagement. I do believe multiple ministries have committed to fulsome engagement on this with the public, with industry, with municipalities that are impacted, that type of thing. So I'd encourage you probably to do that, and then without question, if we get correspondence from municipalities with differing perspectives on this, it will absolutely be brought forward for council consideration as well. At this point, obviously it was just included because we were, the correspondence was actually, directly to us and our council. So, if other perspectives are brought forward, obviously there'd be the commitment to bring that forward to council as well.
Sorry for them, but they're under the pressure of the federal legislation in Canada that has banned all coal mining and all coal mines in Canada, and in the States is still mining coal, and they're giving her hell, and our Canadian government bans it, and then they give China $50 billion to open up 9 or 10 more new coal mines, and
then we import the energy created by the American.
Yeah, I don't know. It frustrates the hell out of me.
This coal isn't being burnt in Canada. It's being burnt in Japan and China.
I know. It's only dirty here.
Yeah.
It's not dirty anywhere else.
So it's definitely a complex issue. At this point, I think Deputy Reeve Clausen has a motion on the floor to accept all of the correspondence as information. Any further questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I think we'll move in camera and get a start on our closed session items. We could, or do you want to go a little bit longer? I'm at council's, whatever council's wishes are.
I'm not hungry.
You're not hungry?
Why not?
Do I need to check your temperature? This has never happened before. Why don't we start? I'll move us into closed session. We can start, and then if we can take a break when we're ready, and that will give a little bit more time because. Okay, I will move us into closed session. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.